Hola, Reina. Vamos a empezar. Y muy buenos días, muy buenos días. Espero que ustedes estén bien. I hope you guys are well. Hoy vamos a practicar. Espero que podamos practicar muchísimo con ser y estar y palabras que conectamos con ser o conectamos con estar para como repaso, as a review. Yeah, ser and estar is always worthy of review because it is such a difficult concept and something we need to do. We're going to start, however, beyond our ser estar, and I hope to get from there into like the common verbs theme. Those are the two big ideas, but we're going to start with a little idea as a warm-up. We're going to do a little idea of review of numbers because this was much requested. The typical comment I get in emails or verbal conversations. Oh, I think I know numbers, and then I hear them, and I'm like, oh my God, okay. or which does happen. You hear a bunch of different numbers, because they're connected, because people will say a certain price per pound or, whatever reason. Numbers are a real challenge, and numbers are they are a listening survival skill. You don't often have to say tons and tons and tons of numbers, but boy, when you listen to people in interactions in stores or in figuring out directions, perhaps, you hear numbers all the time. And numbers can be super vital when it comes to buying stuff. Or understanding how to get to places. So we're going to do a little review, and it'll be a listening review on numbers. ¿Dónde está?
Can I ask a question?
Sí, claro.
When you're in Mexico and you're getting something, they're weighing something for you, they wouldn't say in the pounds, would they say in by the pound, if they were weighing something?
Por libra, sí. Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't, in Mexico, wouldn't it be like by the kilogram or by the...
Oh, okay. The unit of weight. Yeah. Oh, okay. Country by country, I think it will vary quite a bit. In Spain, it's always kilograms because Europe, that's just universal. Mexico, I think the closer you are to the U.S. border,
okay.
the more you'll hear that kind of thing. Something closer to the English system, but other places you will hear, kilogram kind of units. Yes, see. But they'll tell you that as they're weighing. They'll point all that out. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of review, and this is going to be very limited. Necesitan un lápiz, algo para escribir, con papelito, any old scrap paper. You got like the grocery receipt, the backside of that. Es suficiente. Whatever you got to scratch and scribble on. You want to pull up a little thing on your computer and have a little blank thing that you just erased. Do that. No importa mucho. It doesn't really matter very much. Pam, 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 pam. Uy, ¿dónde está? Perdón. I had it all set up, but now I'm looking for my tab.
Would it be donde está? tab?
Ah, ¿dónde está? Sí, ¿dónde está? ¿Dónde está? Sí, no es evento, not an event. So yeah. Okay. And we're only going to do, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 of these. We're going to do some easy ones. Okay. Algo fácil. I'm trying to get this moved up to the end. And actually, I'm going to write it down too, because we're not going to do the whole of this video. We're going to do a partial of this video. A ver. Compartir, share screen. Here we go. A ver, muy bien. So you're not going to see the answers at the end. I'll have to help you with that. Ready. So they're gonna start with A, B, C. We're gonna do that first column, A through G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We're gonna do A through G. So instead of saying 1, 2, 3, they're gonna give you the letters, yeah, instead of the numbers. And they're gonna give you a number. So see if you can pick these up.
A, 6. B, 21. C, 77. D, 53. E, 25. F, 37. G, 67. H.
Okay, and we're going to stop there. We're only going to do those. Okay. Otra vez. ¿Quieren ustedes escuchar una vez más o no? ¿No?
Yeah.
Nada?
I'm
Nada?
good.
Okay. A es 6. 6, ¿no? B, 21. 21 es 21. Perfecto. Sí. C es 77. 77.
77.
77. Perfecto. Muy bien, muy bien. D, letra D, 53. 53.
53.
53. 53. Letra E es 25. 25.
25.
25. And you probably heard him. I think he said this with a little more of a Castilian. 25. 25, you know, the cinco, where we say cinco. In Spain, it's cinco. That's how you can always tell. The CI combinations are always a TH. I mean, for me, it's not a biggie. For some of you, it may throw you a little bit, but it's not a big deal. Okay, 25. Letra F. F es 37. 37 es
37.
37, muy bien. Y G, 67. 67.
67.
67. Perfecto. Muy bien, muy bien, muy bien. Okay. An easy one for today. Para hoy. Algo fácil. Okay. And we'll do some more next week. Always just a little short review and just to, you know, quiz yourself and
Marilyn,
start to get more comfortable. See.
you may have this planned for next week, right? But I was hoping maybe right here, you could take us through in the hundreds where there's a few that that it isn't quite like those cientos. It's, it gets a little bit different. Just kind of walk us through like 100, 200, maybe to 1,000.
Sí, eso sí. Yeah, 100, 100, but anything from 101 goes from that short form, cien to ciento. We put a to on the end, right? So 101, 102, 120, 150. And we did double digits today so that it's an easy buildup. Okay, so I don't barrage you with hard numbers right away. Ciento, and then the 200s is 200, 200s, 300 is 300, right? 400 is cuatrocientos. Okay. And after cuatrocientos, 400, we get to the hard one, as my students used to say. The hard one is the 500 word, because when you go from ciento, 200, 300, 400, your normal thinking pattern is, well, it must be 500, but it is not that, right? 500 is the hard one because it does not take cinco in front of cientos. It is quin. Like quince, 15. Yeah, it goes back to one of those Latin things for the 500 word. Quinientos. Okay. I think that's really keen. Okay. Quinientos. Then we go back to the pattern of 600 is 600. Okay. Then we go back to a little variation on the pattern, but pretty darn close. 700. Then we go back to straight flat out pattern. You're used to 800, 800, right? And then 900 varies just a little bit. You would expect it to be 9, right? With cientos, but we changed the 9 a little bit. We shortened the 9, the ue, to an o. Okay. 900. Like 90 gets shortened, 90. 90, not 90. It's 90. So 900. I like to think, I don't know, but I like to think, because I know it is a very phonetically driven language, Spanish, that a lot of these words sometimes get shortened down because the word is already getting pretty long. Yeah. 900 is a lot of syllables. Yeah. So instead of making it an even long word of 900, it's 900 because 9 is shorter. Yeah. You got to shorten it somehow. So if you shorten 9 to 90, we go to 900, right? And then 1,000 is mil, right?
Mil.
So for people who like the metric system, mil is a great thing because mil is what you expect. It's 1,000, right? Okay. And we'll do a little more with that in the coming weeks, but always something super short. Okay.
That's what I needed. The quinientos and those other two that are a little bit goofy.
Yeah. And so next week we'll do some triple digit things because often you will hear that. You will hear triple digit numbers a lot because of just monetary units being different, inflation with money, what have you, to be charged for something in the hundreds and the thousands is not unheard of. You don't really, as a tourist, probably need to be going into the millions words and fretting all over that. If you want to, there are sites you can go to that'll do that, but really not necessary for the tourist. Okay. I bet, unless you're going to do financial work, in which case then, yeah. Okay. Bueno. Let's start in with our first unit on ser, estar. Here, I'm just going to show you the file. We're going to take a look-see at ser, estar. Ser, estar is tricky because we don't have two verbs in English that are to be. And people who are going from French to Spanish struggle with this also. It is not in French. There's one verb to be. So they're like, why the heck do these people have this? Well, they do. And when you learn Spanish first, a lot of people learn with all the rules. I'm not going to diss that because it's helpful. Some people say, I love the rules because I am a rule-driven person and I love to know the rules for ser and I love to know the rules for estar. And that is the way I learn it. And other people say, I just cannot deal with it. It's just too dumb. 10 things here, 7 things there. What the heck? And now I got to speak. And let's face it, when you speak, that ability to drill down or distill all those rules into something that comes out of your mouth, kind of hard, right? All right. Because when you're speaking, you're going off the cuff. You know, I mean, you can come to class and prep something to speak, and that's great, and that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you talk real life, real time on the streets with people, you never know what's going to come out of their mouth, which is why that makes it difficult. So we're going to take a look at these, and we are going to take a look at some rules, but I want to kind of go beyond the rule thing into some overarching themes. Okay. So, you know, we are going to go off of this. Now, I believe, I'm pretty darn sure, I had sent you this video to watch, right?
Yes.
Stuff. Okay, vale, sí. I thought that was a super well done video. There are a lot of people who've done a lot of videos on ser estar because it is so ding dang confusing. I'm trying to find where's my other one. See, yeah, we're gonna do deep dive a little more with that as well. Do you have any questions about what you heard with that?
Not a question, but I was just laughing uncontrollably when near the end when he was saying, so the rule for fiesta might be, and it was like the whole screen worth of exceptions built into the rule.
Yes. Okay. So that is, yeah. It is a problem. It is a difficulty. And it sometimes we walk away from ser and estar thinking, I am even more confused than when I began. However, here's what we want to take a look at, and I'm going to try to find the exact thing. You know, a lot of times we are told with ser and estar that we have to think in terms of permanent and temporary, or like permanent, permanent and temporary or changeable. And that's sort of true, but in other ways, not 100% there. I'm going to try to find the right point of this video because I would never send you to watch this on your own because it's all in Spanish and it's pretty complicated, but we're going to get, okay, I'm almost there.
So while you're looking, to follow up on what Mark said, I actually thought that was hysterical also. But then he went on to talk about how sticking to the rules makes our brain try to solve language like a math problem.
Yeah.
And I understood right then that's my issue with learning language, because my mind is very analytical. And so I just could sit here and, like I've always said in class, I know these rules backwards and forwards, but I can't talk. And that's why, because I'm so hung up.
Apply them. Yes, because it's that thing of in real time, you don't have that time to sit and be analytical and pick, is it rule number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Yeah, you don't have time for that. Okay, I think I found the right little segue here. We're going to listen, and I'm going to do some like same time translation because she's going to go kind of fast.
Mi nombre es Lucía y soy profesora de español. Hablemos de espacios. Te voy a decir dos
Let's talk about spaces.
espacios. Dentro y fuera. Ya.
Dentro y fuera. Dentro.
Inside.
Y fuera. If we're talking about space. Dentro means inside.
Inside.
Yeah. Fuera means outside.
Right.
Okay. And that is an interesting way to think about ser and estar. So what I want to give you is just some other tools or other ways about thinking of estar that will be a 50-50. Okay? Because processing all those rules takes time. And when you're speaking is not always helpful. But going with a 50-50 rule helps your brain to process faster. Okay? So it's a different way of thinking about ser y estar. I'm going to let her go a little bit, and I may have to
Ya
skip
está.
forward a little bit.
Dentro y fuera. Si tuvieras que relacionar cada uno de esos espacios con
If you had to relate each of these spaces,
ser y estar, ¿cuál
and
sería ser
which
y
one would
cuál
it
sería
be?
estar?
What would you associate fuera with ser or estar? What would you associate dentro with ser or estar?
Estar.
This is a very philosophical thing.
Are you asking us what we would think?
I'm asking you what you would think.
So I would put dentro with ser
Oh,
Okay.
because it's like she's a good person, she's a lawyer, she's a teacher. Whereas
Okay.
Rera is outside, he's tall, he's short. Is that
Well,
right?
Very sebastian.
Tall and short, maybe
Yeah.
not so much, but
Is that just
no,
popped in-
you're on the right track. You're on the
Mm.
right track. And this is an interesting way of looking at ser estar, because a lot of times we are taught permanent and temporary. And there are a lot of people, not a few, a lot who say they don't like that permanent temporary thing. Don't like it. And this, I'm talking native speakers, because they don't feel that really gets to the key of ser y estar. But this internal versus external definitely does.
Piénsalo unos segundos.
Uh,
Probablemente has pensado lo que te voy a decir ahora. Tenemos que relacionar ser con el espacio interno.
we have to think about ser with internal space. Okay, here's why. Ser talks about the essence. I want you to think of ser as a label, an ID tag, those sticky things that you get to meetings that you got to stick on your shirt so everybody can know your name. Yeah, you go to a networking thing or, whatever. The ID tag. Ser is an ID tag. If you think of ser as an ID tag because it talks about what that person or thing really is, it's super helpful. And maybe let go a little bit of the permanent, temporary. I mean, although that can be helpful, but sometimes it is not helpful. Okay?
Ser con dentro y estar con fuera.
Estar con fuera. External forces are more in effect, are applied more with estar. Okay? How we feel is often imposed upon us by things happening from the outside coming in at us. If you are unhappy, if you feel unhappy or you feel happy, quite often it is because of something that happened, some way a person interacted with you, a problem that mucked up your schedule. Yeah. Something else external is coming in at you and producing an effect of how you feel. So that can be very helpful. So let's
Veamos
listen a
por
little bit
qué.
more.
Hablemos de fulanito. Voy a decir
Fulanito just means kind of like, what would we say? We use Tom, Dick, or Harry to talk about, like any old guy. Tom, Dick, or Harry. It sounds kind of obscene. Joe Blow, yeah. The just any old guy kind of term. Fulanito is the any old guy term. Fulanito.
de fulanito que es y está amable.
Amable means kind.
Si yo digo que fulanito es amable,
Fulanito es amable.
¿cómo lo representaríamos? Pues de esta manera. Tenemos a fulanito con la etiqueta
Etiqueta en la frente. He's got a name tag on his forehead. Etiqueta is a label. La etiqueta ser en la frente. Es amable. He is kind. All right. Amable, kind, agreeable. Yeah. Amable. Es amable. And we should think of ser as etiqueta, a label on somebody. Etiqueta identifies what that person is really like from the inside out. Okay, as a general rule. Now, some people call that permanent characteristic, but it's talking about what that person's character most of the time generally is. What kind of person from deep down is this guy? Fulanito. Yeah, Fulanito es amable.
Amable en la frente. ¿Por qué? Porque amable forma parte de su identidad.
Kindness forms a part of his identity. Kindness is what he really is at his core. That's ser. Okay.
De su identificación. Por eso tenemos a fulanito con amable en la frente.
So, you know, instead of saying jerk on his forehead, it says es amable. He's deep down a good person.
Amable. Pero si yo digo que fulanito está amable, así es como lo representamos. La etiqueta amable no está dentro de fulanito. La etiqueta amable está alrededor de fulanito.
So yeah, this label etiqueta is not smacked on his forehead as a part of who he is from inside out. Está amable. And by the way, you will hear es amable way more, because usually we're talking about how somebody really is. But if somebody, because people throw you a curveball. This is what happens with conversations. Somebody throws you the curveball. Está amable. They are indicating something very specific by switching to estar with that. They are saying that he's acting that way right now. Not necessarily always like that. Something happened to produce this amable characteristic.
Flotando. ¿Por qué? Porque no forma parte de su identidad. No
Yeah, it's not part of what fulanitos really like all the time. You know, this might be, you know, we've all had that boss who is really a jerk, but every once in a while, the boss has a good day. Está amable. Yeah. Okay. Now, in the big pie chart of when we use ser estar, you're going to hear amable, that particular description word, amable, used way more with ser. Way more. Because usually when we're talking about people, we're talking about what they're really not like. Okay. Está amable would be indicating how this person feels or is acting at this time. So sometimes people will take a word that you learn in the books, only goes with ser, like amable, and they'll suddenly slap an está on it, but they're signaling something to you when they speak that way. See, that's the point. Okay, bien? And that is really where I'm going to leave that little thing. I'm not going to play any more of that because it's a pretty complicated video. But estar is always going to talk about how somebody feels or something that is highly changeable, because your feelings are highly changeable. Okay. But estar doesn't talk about deep down what that thing is. Okay. Bien. Estar also talks about location, where something is located in space. I don't know if we can pin that with a spatial thing, you know, that outside inside thing quite so much, but location. The only time we don't use estar for location is if we're talking about events. And that's really all you need to know. That whole thing you watched in the homework video about a fiesta. When we talk about events like fiesta, reunión, a meeting, boda, a wedding, yeah? When we talk about an event, something that is happening, then we do use ser. Okay. And that's all you really got to know. Most of the time when we talk about location, we need estar. The great majority of the time. I mean, that's just generally where we need estar to be, is with location. So now let's take a look at our rules.
Could I ask just a
Sí, sí.
quick example question
claro.
on that? So if I was like thinking of baseball games, the Diamondbacks, say, would I say like that the Diamondback games, los partidos de los D-backs, son or están Chase Field?
Son and Chase Field.
Because
Son and
it's
Chase
an
Field.
event.
Yes.
Because it's an event, so it doesn't go with the
Sí.
rule of use
Absolutely.
estar for a location.
So think of it this way. When we talk about events, could you say all the games take place at Chase Field? Take place, ser. Takes place. A wedding takes place at X reception hall. Yeah. The class takes place on the second floor, not the first floor. So you got to go up the stairs, right? The meeting takes place in the main salon. ¿Sí? La reunión es en el salón principal. El partido es en el estadio en Glendale.
But if it was, but say if a Diamondback game was located in not okay in a different city for a moment, you would say a star. You would use a star. Oh no.
Well, if you're talking about the game is an event.
Okay, so
El partido es en, el partido no es en Phoenix, el partido es en Denver, por ejemplo, ¿sí? Okay, but now if I'm talking about the stadium, so if I'm switching gears and I'm not talking about the game, I'm talking about, Mark, give me an actual field.
Yankee Stadium
okay.
está en Nueva York.
Eso. Sí. Wrigley Field está en Chicago. Wrigley Field está en Chicago. Wrigley Field is not an event. It's a place. And notice Wrigley Field is never going to get up. Well, nowadays with sponsorships, maybe it will get up and move. I shouldn't say that, but an actual building that is set in place that is not portable, let's say, you think, well, that's permanent. Why is it estar? Location is estar. Location for objects and living things. Objects and living things. Locations of objects and things and living things. So people, animals, whatever. Right? Estar for location might be temporary, might be permanent. Temporary and permanent has nothing to do with it, with estar. Yeah, temporary and permanent has no place with estar talking about location. Right? Los Ángeles está en California, en el sur, está en el sur de California. Los Angeles is in Southern California. Los Angeles is not going to move to a different place. It is there permanently, but it still uses estar because it is location. And Los Angeles is not a happening event. It is a thing, right? But if I want to say la conferencia de Google es en Oakland. La conferencia de Google es en San Francisco. If it's a Google conference, that's an event, and then it's ser. Yeah. Pero San Francisco, la ciudad está en el norte de California. San Francisco is in the northern part of California. San Francisco is not an event. It's a place. See? Las oficinas de Google están en California. Google offices are in California. Offices are not events. They are a physical location. See? Bien? So, estar, yeah, does that. Okay, vale, bueno. So, let's take a look at our ser, estar. And the really, really important thing for you to know about ser, estar is this, or the important thing for you to know about ser is this: it identifies. Ser always identifies. It is something that is innate, an integral part of what that thing or person is. It does not tell how somebody feels. What something is like is not how that person feels. Okay? How they feel is something that comes from the external and affects them. So that fuera, outside, applies to estar. But ser is from the inside out. Okay? But it always identifies. So almost all of these rules with ser plop out of that idea of putting an ID tag on it, right? So the whole thing of fecha, date, we're using ser to talk about anything related to time. I should say, yeah. Anything related to time is said, right? So whether it's hoy es lunes, today is Monday, or son las 11 de la mañana, it's 11 in the morning, those are all time-related things. Ser is always used to talk about time, okay? Profesión, job, relationships. And this is something that I hear a lot of people mess up on with the professions end of it. There are a lot of people who want to say things like, José está profesor. And that's not done, right? Profession is a name tag. It is what you do. It is part of your identity. Okay? Now, I am going to say this. Once in a while, you might hear somebody, here comes the curveball. Here comes the curveball. Let's talk about actores, actors. You know that actors, unless they're famous, acting is not always the day job, right? So to pay the bills, actors who are aspiring, who are not yet famous, often have to do other things. And so you could talk about a guy who is an actor, and you might say, está, a ver, momentito, lenguaje, aquí. Está de mesero. Está de mesero. Not es mesero, he's a waiter. He's just doing this now to make ends meet. El actor no es famoso. El actor, todo el mundo no conoce al actor. Not everybody knows this actor. He's just, starting out. And so to make ends meet, he is subbing in, working as a waiter. So you might hear está de mesero, and this de is going to be there. And this tells you he's working temporarily as a waiter. Quiere ser es actor. He is an actor. That is what he wants to do. But, to make ends meet, está de mesero. He's working in between time, waiting tables. So that's the curveball you might hear with profession. But that's not the norm of how most people will use or we'll talk about professions. Here's the norm. Soy enfermera. I'm a nurse. Here's the norm. Not a profession, but a relationship. Anita, yo somos viejas amigas. We are old friends. That's a relationship thing, right? So anytime we talk about a profession or a job or relationship, that's ser, right? Okay, let's look at that other side. Estar, it talks about location and how you feel. So location means position, location of things and people. See, mi bolsa está en la mesa. Has nothing to do with the fact that my purse might be many different places and it's temporary. It's just a location thing. My purse is not an event. My bag I carry is not an event. Yeah, it's just a thing. In a certain position in the house, right? Está en la mesa. Estamos en Arizona. We are in Arizona. Florida está en Estados Unidos. Florida is in the United States. Well, that's permanent. That state is located there all the time, but it is location, right? So, estar, location. We use estar with actions in progress. Okay, estar with the verbs that end in ando or yendo to talk about what is happening in real time. Okay, so that is a thing that is used very specifically in Spanish, much more specifically than in English. Talk about something happening in real time as we are speaking. Estamos estudiando español. We are studying Spanish. I cannot say about this group, truthfully now, estamos comiendo un bagel. We're not all eating a bagel right now. I couldn't use that way right now because that's not what we're doing. Estamos hablando, estamos pensando en la gramática, estamos conversando, estamos practicando, estamos escuchando. Those would all be true. Okay. Estoy escuchando la música if what you're doing is listening to music right now. See? Bien? So here are some half and half things we can look at. Ser, and think again about putting a label on it. Origen, origin. Soy de Estados Unidos. Where I am from is part of who I am. I was born in a place. It ain't never going to change. It will never change. That is one thing and one thing only. It is part of who I am from the inside out. So that's why origen is ser. Características, and we've already talked about that a lot. Characteristics, anything that tells what someone or something is usually or is really like in a general sense. What it is like from the inside out. That is ser. Okay? And that is a key. It's the dentro, inside thing. Estar, again, is the opposite side. It talks about emotions, right? How somebody feels. Estoy muy contento, estoy muy contenta, etc. Condición, and this is where we get messed up sometimes too. Conditions. What's the difference between a condition and a characteristic? You know, wow, this is the part where 50%, well, 90% of the time, maybe, of how we use estar is what messes us up. What's the difference between a condition and a characteristic? A condition is something that is very changeable. It is a state. It is the way something is right now, but because of other things that are affecting that, right? It is not, a condition is not from the inside out. Characteristic is from the inside out, dentro. And the condition is from external effects, right? So conditions are easily changeable or subject to change rather quickly and easily, right? ¿Sí? Bien. Okay. Por ejemplo, aquí un ejemplo muy típico. La comida está caliente. The food is hot. Food, in order to be food, doesn't have to be hot. Food in general, yeah. Food can be cold, can be lukewarm, food can be warm, hot, any temperature at all, right? La comida está caliente. El plato está caliente. Anything that is talking about temperature, there is going to be estar, right? But let's think of something more specific. Let's talk about this. Let's look at the characteristic side. Again, talking about food, but something more specific. El gazpacho. Gazpacho is a cold tomato soup, and that is the identifying factor of what gazpacho is. Es una sopa, it's a soup. El gazpacho es frío. Gazpacho is cold. An identifying characteristic of gazpacho is that it is not a hot soup. It is always served cold. Es frío. It's a cold thing. Or even better, el hielo, ice, es frío. Ice is cold. If ice is not cold, it ceases to be ice. It is a condition, it is a characteristic. It is a characteristic. In order to be ice, it has to be cold. Okay? It will no longer be ice if that cold thing is not there. Yeah? See? Okay.
Mhm.
So, rather than saying that ice is cold is a permanent versus a temporary thing, we can really say that an identifying factor with ice is that it must be cold in order to be ice. All right. It is no longer going to be ice for very long if it gets out of that cold state. Okay. Bien. So, yeah. The permanent and temporary is true, but kind of, yeah. So what we want to think about is, does the description relate to a concept that is really baked in? Is it an innate part of what that thing really is? Or when we talk about descriptions, because descriptions is where we often go wrong with this, is it a something that might easily change, or is it truly, truly temporary? Okay, a ver. Let's take a look at some examples. Ejemplos. And we're going to do this one together. Ser o estar. These kind of characteristics. Grande, pequeño, importante, genial. And generally, when we describe a thing as grande, pequeño, importante, genial,
Ser,
does ser make more sense? Does estar make more sense?
ser,
Ser.
Ser makes more
Ser.
sense. Ser makes more sense. Yeah. Okay. Bien. Un ejemplo. Give me an example of grande. En una frase.
Alaska es un estado grande.
Sí. Alaska es un estado. Perfecto. Alaska es un. And I'm going to take your estado out. Alaska es grande. Because when I say Alaska es un estado, I'm saying it's a state. And I'm really saying grande with the state. So we just want to say Alaska is big. See? If I say Alaska es un estado, I'm saying it is a state and I'm identifying it as a political entity, right? But Alaska es grande, bien. ¿Qué más?
Mi jardín no es grande.
Mi jardín no es grande, and we can make that negative too. Sí, mi jardín no es grande. Bien. Yeah, whether you make it negative or affirmative, sí, vale. Ah, por ejemplo, un camión F-150 es grande. An F-150 truck is big.
Big.
Okay. So, okay. Bastante obvio. Pretty obvious, right? Right?
Yeah.
So here comes the curveball. Here comes the curveball. Mi hijo tiene 5 años. My kid is 5 years
5
old.
years old.
Pero está muy grande. This is a curveball. It is not the usual way we're going to say it. It is not the usual way. It's a curveball. Pero está muy grande. Wow. What am I implying with that? If I phrase it that way, this is not the usual, but you could hear somebody say it that way. And you know what? I'm going to change it. Instead of mi hijo, I'm going to say we're observing about your kid. Tu hijo. Tu hijo tiene 5 años, pero está muy grande. And I'm even going to put this in because you hear it in my voice, but in order to get it in writing, this, pero está muy grande. What I'm implying is that he what?
Big for his size.
For
For his
his
age.
Big for his age.
Yeah.
It's an implication. It's a curveball. This is not the usual. It is not the usual way you should phrase it, but it is a curveball and it can happen. Okay. So we just want to prepare you for the curveball moment. See? Pero está muy grande. Wow. He looks really big. He's big for his age. Okay. Vale. Bueno. Pequeño. Vamos a ver. Pequeño. Ejemplos con pequeño. Little or small.
Mi gata está pequeña.
Mi gato. Well, now, normalmente, if we say mi gato está pequeño,
Oh, I'm sorry, did I say está? Mi gata es
I thought
pequeña.
maybe I misheard you. Es pequeño.
No.
This is going to be the normal one, right? And this is probably not going to be subject to that thing that you said here with the kid looking this way, because we don't really expect, unless it's some, Maine Coon cat, some enormous, huge thing, like, Guinness Book of Records being way too big or way too small. Yeah. Usually, mi gato es pequeño, mi gato es pequeño. Okay, mi gato es pequeño. Otro ejemplo. Si mi bolsa para ir de compras en el súper es pequeño, ¿no? Mi bolsa es pequeña, perdón, bolsa. Mi bolsa para ir de compras en el súper es pequeña. My bag for taking it into the supermarket is small. Vale. Bueno. Mi abuelita Mi abuelita es una mujer pequeña. Granny is a small woman. Okay? Vale. But usually es. Now notice this comment, the curveball comment, how big that 5-year-old looks. People don't usually say how little somebody looks. Wow, your kid is small for his age. They might think it, but they're not going to say it that much, right? You're not going to hear that kind of curveball very much. But you could very well hear this curveball, right? Because people are paying a compliment. Okay. Bien. Okay. Importante. Importante. And this one is kind of a flat out, always rule. Ser.
I have la mujer que está allí es política importante.
Sí. La mujer que es política es importante. The woman who is a politician is important because of her job. ¿Sí? ¿Sí? Este documento es importante. Bien? Okay. A ver, uy. Keeps wanting to go to a smaller font. Let's try to fix that. You may or may not agree with me. Here we go. Aquí vamos. Bien. Vale. Let's take it maybe a step bigger here. A lot of things just start off with es importante, meaning it's important. And what am I talking about when I use it's, es? I don't know. A situation, right? Entonces, es importante cepillarse los dientes cada día. It's important to brush your teeth every day. I'm just talking about the situation, right? Whenever we use es importante, it's important as talking about a general idea. It's always going to be ser. Always. Siempre. Okay. Bueno, genial. And we can use genial the way we use importante. No, perdón. Este producto para limpiar es genial. This cleaning product is awesome. ¿Sí? Este producto para limpiar es genial. Así. ¿Bien?
So, Marilyn, I considered an example with estar with this one, so tell me if this is right. Algunas veces la comida en este restaurante está genial. A otras veces hay demasiadas sal y grasa.
Okay. If you're talking about the way something is prepared or the way it tastes, that might work. But if we're talking about the essence of what that food is really like, it'll be es. So that might go into a gray area, maybe.
Okay.
But usually, genial, usually ser. Es genial. Es genial. Okay, a ver.
Marilyn, would it matter at all whether something is sort of spoken of as more generally awesome, or if something is like your opinion? Like in Lori's example, if some food tastes great, would it always be ser, as opposed to I think this is great?
Sí, opinión. Sí, depende. You know, if I'm talking about, let's say a car, let's say you got a new Tesla and you love your Tesla. Even though that's your opinion, it's almost always going to be expressed as, ay, mi nuevo Tesla es genial. My new Tesla is fabulous, even though it's your opinion. It just, inside out, the way that puppy is engineered, it's just, because you love it. The way it is designed, and that's part of the way it is. That's usually going to be described as genial. When we get with estar with some of these descriptions, it's usually because of something having a look, because of something specifically that was done. And with something like a product, it's kind of static. You know, it comes off the, it's not like a plate, it's not like a steak that was seared and seasoned just right. Yeah. Piece of art kind of thing. Okay.
Are you talking about just for in a real, only for like if something's awesome or if it's important that you would use?
These are, a lot of these descriptions, because where we get messed up with ser and estar is often in descriptions. It's often because it's tough for us to distinguish if these descriptions are in general part of what that thing really is like all the time versus something temporary and changeable.
Okay, so important.
Yeah. So you know what? If something is important, that's generally just the way it is.
Yeah.
Either important or it's not.
Okay.
You know?
So in your example, like this of the steak, you would use es, not estar.
If I want to say, actually, I've got a good thing with foods, which is going to show you a little bit better than I can say it, because you get a feel for this. When we usually start to talk about food, it's talking about the way it tastes, looks, and is prepared. Something special. Not in and of itself what that food is like. Let me show you something that is going to talk about that. Aquí viene, here it comes. And I'm going to have to interpret a little. I purposely didn't want to send this to you to try to interpret on your own. Okay.
Bien, bueno, pues como os he dicho, pues aquí estoy en mi terraza y
Here I
he
am.
decidido
Here I am on my terrace.
grabar este podcast porque me
I decided to record the whole podcast here.
dijisteis que os gustan mucho las vistas.
They like to see the views from my
desde
terrace.
mi terraza. Así que bueno, vamos a hablar hoy de esta diferencia entre los verbos ser y estar
We're
con
going to talk about the differences between ser and estar
diferentes adjetivos.
with different
Y
adjectives.
para ello, pues he cogido un par de alimentos que
And never use cogido, but he does because he's Spanish and that's okay in Spain. It's not okay elsewhere. I've grabbed a few items. He cogido algunas cosas. I've picked some things that were in my cabinet, that were in my cupboard. Dispensa is a cupboard.
tenía en la
So I grabbed some things that I had in my cupboard,
despensa de mi cocina.
in my
Y
kitchen.
bueno, pues vamos a ver por qué esta diferencia. Vamos a empezar
Whoa, what's this difference about?
con ser y estar bueno. Ser bueno o estar bueno.
Oh, let's look at really a basic word. Bueno, good. That's one of the hardest ones. But now let's think about it. We're talking about food. This is kind of specific when we're talking about using bueno with food. Do I use es bueno or estar bueno? And he's going to give you some context with the
¿Cuál es la
descriptions.
diferencia, Vicente? ¿Cómo lo diferenciamos? Bueno, pues para ello he cogido estos refrescos que estáis viendo aquí, la
I grabbed some soft drinks, some sodas here,
típica Coca-Cola y
Coca-Cola,
el típico refresco de limón, que bueno, comúnmente en España lo llamamos Fanta de limón.
and everybody in Spain calls it Fanta. Even if it's not Fanta, it is always called Fanta. The juicy fruit sodas are always called Fanta because I think that's just the original brand that was there years ago. And it's like, I guess, well, Mark would know this better than I, people in New York calling like lots of different sodas of Coke. Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Da igual si es de la marca Fanta o no es de la marca Fanta.
Doesn't matter if it's the Fanta brand or some other
Se le
brand.
llama Fanta de limón.
Fanta.
Entonces, en mis manos tengo una Fanta de limón, una Coca-Cola y un ajo.
Y un ajo and a garlic. Okay, those food things are not alike, but is going to illustrate the point.
Y un ajo es todo lo que tenía en mi despensa.
Everything
no me ha
I
dado
had in my
tiempo a ir al
cupboard.
supermercado a comprar más cosas.
I haven't had any time to buy more stuff. Okay, he's
Bien,
a single
bueno, vamos a ver,
guy.
Vicente. ¿El ajo es bueno o está bueno?
Oh, if I talk about ajo, would I use es bueno or está bueno? Garlic is good.
Es.
Garlic is good. Ooh. Okay, es bueno. You are saying something very specific if you use bueno with es. El ajo es bueno. Sí, posible.
Bueno, pues en primer lugar, el ajo es bueno.
Garlic is good. Now remember, we're coming from the interior, the dentro idea. Garlic is good. What are you saying by saying that? El ajo es bueno. Garlic is a good kind of thing to eat.
Yeah.
It's an ID label. It's a good thing to eat. It's a good food.
El ajo es muy bueno para la salud.
It's good for your health.
De hecho, el ajo es un alimento prácticamente inflamatorio, antiinflamatorio.
It's an anti-inflammatory kind of food.
Y está muy bien. El ajo es casi una medicina.
Garlic is almost a medicine.
Es buenísimo.
It is super good. Es buenísimo. As a food category, it is a good thing. Again, that's from the inside out. You can put ajo in the category of good kinds of foods. Okay.
Ahora, si tú me preguntas, ¿está
If you
bueno?
ask me, is it
Bueno,
good?
a ver, la verdad, aquí tengo un gajo de ajo, tengo un gajo de ajo
And now he's got a clove of it in his
en
hand.
mis manos y la verdad es que pues no está bueno.
No está bueno. No está bueno. Here's what he means. Oops, eso no. Bye. A ver. No está bueno. Here's what he means. This thing right here. No está bueno. El ajo no está bueno. There's a different meaning behind. El ajo es bueno. In general, all garlic is a good food group. El ajo está bueno. This garlic is no good because it's rotted. It wasn't used fast enough. It's starting to deteriorate. Okay. So when we talk about bueno, talking about foods, this helps illustrate the difference between ser and estar. El ajo es bueno. It's a good food category. It's a good kind of food. Pero el ajo no está bueno. This garlic is not good, meaning it's starting to rot. Bien. Okay. Vale. A ver.
Yo no me lo comería así ahora mismo porque no está bueno.
I
Es
wouldn't eat
muy
it like
bueno,
this
el
because
ajo
it's
es
no
muy
good.
bueno
Because it's no good.
para la salud, es bueno,
It's good for your health,
pero no está bueno.
but this is not in good shape. It's gone bad.
Bueno, si queremos buscar algo que esté bueno, podemos buscar quizás la típica Fanta de limón. Una Fanta de limón, pues Está buena, sí.
Oh, Fanta de limón, lemon soda. Está buena. It tastes good. Está buena. Open it up, drink it, tastes good.
Sí, es refrescante, sabe a limón.
It's refreshing. It tastes like lemon.
Está buena, está muy
Hey, it's good. But when you're saying it's good, it tastes good.
buena. ¿Es buena? Hombre, no es buena. No es buena porque
Wait a minute. It's not a good thing. No es buena. No es buena. ¿Sí? La Fanta de limón no es buena. Lemon Fanta is not good for you. It is not a good kind of food.
tiene mucho, tiene azúcar,
It's got a lot of sugar.
tiene conservantes,
It has preservatives.
tiene estabilizantes, tiene productos químicos
Stabilizers.
prácticamente.
It's got all kinds of chemicals. Practically speaking, lots of chemicals.
Tiene un ingrediente que se llama ácido ascórbico.
It's got this, ascorbic acid. It's got this ingredient.
Esto no puede ser bueno.
This cannot be good. Esto no puede ser bueno. This cannot be good. Meaning not a good thing. Has nothing to do with the taste. There are a lot of things we like the taste of, but they're not good for us. We all know that, yeah.
Esto no es bueno. Esto
This
no,
is not
esto no es
good.
bueno. Por lo tanto, el ajo es bueno. El ajo es bueno para la salud, pero no está bueno.
Okay, so garlic is good for you, but this particular garlic is not in good shape. ¿Sí? Y es la diferencia entre ser y estar con bueno. Bueno is one of the adjectives that is super hard to distinguish. Yeah? ¿Sí? Bien. Let's take a look. Vamos a ver. Let's take a quick look at some, I want to take a look at some quick